Hello, this is a training on a number of topics including managing relationships, setting up the daily rotation, managing courses and students associated with courses, taking attendance, and parent-teacher conferences. Along the way, we will also cover PDF reports and running reports. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to send those to support@pcreducator.com, and we'll be happy to take any comments, requests, and see what we can do for you. All right, so to start with, I'm going to cover managing relationships. So for relationships, there's a number of things that happen. So initially, when you have a student, you go to details, and then you go to households, you can see the associated households with a student. You have the option of linking additional households. So for instance, I can click Link Households, locate another household, and select them and add it. And then there'll be now two households that the student is associated with, in this case, the Abbott family and the Yime family. And for each household, there should be exactly one primary household. You can have multiple secondary households. There should also be exactly one household that's responsible for any billing. You can change these settings by marking them as, like for instance, I could mark this as the billing household instead. You can also mark whether they are okay to pick up or no pickup, or whether there's joint custody or no custody. And then if there's some sort of mistake, you can always unlink the associated household. When you're on the screen, you can also navigate to the household by clicking More to take you to the household's information. So here we can see we've gone to the Yime family, and we have Graham Yime and Ariana Yime as the two parents. So under the two parents, there's a couple of options. So what can happen is families might split up, and so you need to figure out how to manage the split in the PC Educator system. You might have parents that are separated, then remarried, or marry someone else, and they happen to have students at the school, so you need to join the households together and merge them. A number of things can happen. These can all be managed to some degree under split switch. So for instance, right now, if we go back to parent one is Graham and parent two is Ariana. So what we can do is we can switch the order of the parents, switch parents. And now what we'll see is Ariana is parent one and Graham is two. We can switch them back. Another thing we can do is we can actually split the current household. So let's say they got divorced. When we split the households, we can now go to the new household. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to households, and I'm going to look for anyone whose last name is Yime and not show selected only. You can see we now have two households. They both have the same address, but they have different IDs, and parent one, what used to be parent two, is now parent one of the new household. Okay, now let's take a look at both families. And let's see if we have, children. Let's make sure we have children on here. So if we look at the first household, Yime family, we can see that David is attached, and we switch to the other household with Ariana, and we can see that David is also attached to this household. So the associated records with the household, all the students that were connected with the household follow along. The user that would have been associated with the household, so for instance, if parent two had their own user in the one household, that parent two user would follow along to the new household. If they had donor attributes, donor giving, any sort of invoices that are associated specifically with parent two, those would all follow along to the new household. Now let's say we have the reverse situation. We want to merge these two households. If we were to merge them right now, it would be trying to merge parent one and parent two, or parent one and parent two and parent two. In this case, we don't want that, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into this household and switch the parents. So now when I look at the households, I can see Ariana is now listed for parent two. So when I merge these two households, Graham will be parent one, Ariana will be parent two. Use the multi-action merge households. And you have to have exactly two households selected in order to perform a merge household. Just give it a moment because it has to calculate all the differences and what will be matched between the households, including all peripheral records. And here we can see this is all the information it's going to keep from the different households. So for anything where there is no data in the other household, it's automatically selected. As we go down, we can see there are no invoices, no receipts, no donations. There are some donor attributes that will be merged. The relationship, these will be kept. And then notes are blank, so there's nothing changed there. Now what happens is when merging households, the lower household ID is going to be the one on the left, and the higher household ID is the one on the right. It's going to keep the one on the left. You can change that if you want by clicking the switch IDs. It'll switch the order and recalculate it so that it'll keep the higher household ID. Mostly that's not going to be very important, so I'm just going to go ahead and merge these households as is. And now we can see that in this merged household, we have this child relationship still. Parent 1 is Graham, parent 2 is Ariana. So the merge has been completed and the other household is now gone. So you can use that to merge households. This can be used for, in this example, I'm suggesting that these two parents were two different parents and they got married and were combined for that reason. It can also be used to combine duplicate households in case there are multiple instances of the same record that are true duplicates and you want to condense them down to one record. You can do multiple instances of merging the households. All right, next we're going to switch gears and talk about setting up the daily rotation. This happens under scheduling, blocks, daily rotation. And this menu item is only available in the current year. The daily rotation is specific for each division. And so if you have a different rotation, if you have rotations that need to be set up, they need to be set up for each division that has scheduling. So what happens is you pick the month and the year. Even though this is only under current year, technically this is a calendar and it's applicable to any year. It's not something that's changed by the close of school year or anything. So you can set it up for next year ahead of time, is what I'm trying to say. In this case, I'm looking at June 2019, and I can see that day 1 is in school, day 2 in school, day 3 in school for all these different days. And so it's just on a 5-day daily rotation, and they're in school every day. You have the option of changing something to be out of school or no school. You can actually configure these different day statuses. If it's in school, it's in school. If it's any other status, it's out of school or no school. You can create additional ones, and here maybe you have some sort of training day for the teachers, so you can add additional ones, but anything that's not in school will be considered out of school. And this is important for attendance purposes and the teacher portal. So for instance, if I were to take attendance for between like the 26th through the 15th for a student, I want to mark all their attendance. It'll only take attendance for days that are actually meeting and days that the student actually has classes. All right, so let's see. If a record is set to blank, that means that there's no entry for that item. So you don't have to mark no school and like day 99 no school for this sort of day. It's unnecessary. You can just leave it unrecorded, and the default is it'll just default to the first day, but that is an option. You could actually record every day that's not recorded or not in school. When you finish making changes, make sure to click Save Changes. It'll save all the changes you make to that month, and then you can set up the next month. One thing to keep in mind is I recommend you only set up a daily rotation maybe a month in advance, and this is so that in the event that, for instance, if a snow day occurs, something that disrupts the school schedule, you will only have a month's worth of daily rotation to change at worst, instead of having to change possibly several months because you added the whole year at the beginning. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, June. So now that we have a daily rotation available here, I am going to move over to course management. So there's two different ways to manage course information. You can do it under scheduling courses or under admin courses. I'm going to go ahead and stick with scheduling courses for the time being. Go to courses, details. We can see the details for individual courses. And here you can see there's scheduling fields listed. There's also registrar fields listed. These are dependent on whether you see these modules or not, are depending on your role. So if you are a user that does not have the registrar roles, you would not see the registrar field options to modify. The other important thing to keep in mind is every course has to have a department. So to set up your departments, that's under scheduling departments. The departments are specific per division, just as the courses are, so the departments would need to be set up per division. The reporting order is of importance because the reporting order determines which order the courses will show on transcripts and report cards. The default behavior is it will sort first by the department and then by the course name on report cards and transcripts. So for instance, if you have a course under related, if you have multiple courses under related services, those courses would show first in this instance because they have the highest report order, and then the English courses would show next. And then if you have multiple English courses, those individual courses would be sorted by course name. All right, to change the order is easy enough. If you go to the details on any department and go to report order, all you have to do is click, drag, and drop the course to where you want it to be in the new order. All right, so that's okay. So once you have your department set up, and you can then create courses and associate the courses with the departments. You can set up the various fields. They should be mostly self-explanatory. Some important ones are is advisory course and is homeroom course. If something is an advisory course, then when a student is enrolled into a section of that course, the teacher for that section will be the advisor of the student. Similarly, if they are enrolled into a section of a homeroom course, basically the section name of that course section will become the student's homeroom. And that becomes convenient because under the student list, you can actually see the current advisor and homeroom of a student. So here we have David Yeme's advisor is Graham Stigog. And if we look at his schedule, you can see there's a student advisory course, and the teacher is Stigog. So they are part of student advisory section 4. And that section is being taught by Stigog. And if we take a look at the advisory course itself, look at the course info, we can see that it is marked as an is advisory course. And if we look back at the sections for the advisory course, so that was section 4. We can see that Graham Stigog is the primary teacher of the course, and that's why they are listed as the advisor for the student. To create a new section of a given course, how you do that is you locate the course you want to create a section for. And then under the sections, in this case we're in current year schedule, we can click new to create a new section of, in this case it would be ancient civilization. And that's how you can create additional sections. Another way is to import sections. For the individual sections of a course, actually, let's go to section 4. Since this is a 2-semester course, we can see it meets for both semesters, and we can see which teachers and period it's meeting for and the room it's meeting for. So in this case, this course is meeting for period B. If we go to period codes and look at period B, we will see that it meets for days 1, 2, 4, and 5. And since that follows the daily schedule, so that means today is a day 2, and it does not meet Wednesday tomorrow. Now, if we wanted to modify the student schedule, the way that can be done is under scheduling students, details, and then conflict list. On this, what we see is on the left is the student's current schedule. On the right would be available courses. Any course that's highlighted in yellow would be some sort of problem, either a conflict or an overcapacity. So what we can see is if we were to try to add a cappella choir, there would be some sort of warning. So it says, a cappella choir has conflicts with AP French Lit 1. And then we can either say, sure, let's go ahead and add it, or we can decide not to add it. So in this case, I'm going to cancel. Another option is if you want to just switch the section of a course. So let's say we want to switch the student from Ancient Civilization Section 4. We can expand this plus and see what other sections are available. So we can move them to Section 2, Section 1. Section 3 would actually be a conflict. And so if we tried to schedule that one, it would warn us, okay, this actually has a conflict with AP Chem Lab Section 1. It'd also warn us if there was an overcapacity. So this would be a way to switch sections and see which other sections are available if you want to switch a student section. To drop a student from a course, you can click the X button to remove the student from all terms, or you can click the little X button to remove it from a specific term. Over on the right, we have some search options for which courses we want to look at. Maybe we only want to see courses that are not conflicts. We can search for those. Let's give it a moment because the conflicts detection is kind of involved. There are also options to exclude any courses that would be over capacity. There's also an option to click Include All, which what happens is by default, it shows courses that the student meets the criteria for based on min-max grade level and min-max selections. But you can opt to change that or have them take a class that they are not qualified for by clicking Include All. Okay, so here we see that now all the courses that are listed, it probably had to recalculate the conflicts. All these courses that are currently listed are non-conflicts. Another thing you can look at is if you scroll down a little bit, you can see the selections for the student. So this student is selecting English 3, and they do not have it. So we can see, okay, which sections of English 3 are available that we could add. So we could add English 3 Section 3, which is period C, and it would no longer be a course that they're requesting they don't have. Another one would be U.S. History. We could add U.S. History to the course, but these down here are the selections, the courses the students are selecting, and they are not currently enrolled in. All right. So now that we have our student, we have a schedule. Let's go ahead and take a look at a report. So here we have David selected. We have the option to do a multi-action PDF reports. And you can do PDF reports for most type of records, students, households, what have you. There's a multi-action available for PDF reports. In this case, I want to see what sort of options we have in terms of a schedule. So here we have students, bump students by courses. Oh, this is listed under daily schedule. Let's look at, see if we have any grid courses. Okay, here we go. Student schedule grid. The key here is any sort of grid schedule is separated by, if it's a grid, it's able to be run for days. It's supposed to be run for courses that meet days 1 through 5, so a normal week schedule. If you have a more complex schedule that meets different days, you could use the grid 2 schedule instead. So now when I request this report, I will get the student's grid schedule for both semesters. Now, one option you have when requesting a report is you can check this send email when complete. If you do that and request a report, once the report is completed, you will receive an email to the email associated with your current logged in user once it's complete. I can click the download to download the report, and here I can see his schedule for both semesters, and we can see Ancient Civilization meets day 1, day 2, doesn't meet day 3, meets day 4, and then day 5. You also have the option of adding additional conditions. So maybe I don't want to see both semesters. I only want to see semester 1 schedule. So I can add a condition for course section semester equals 1, add it, Now I request the report. You can see it's redoing the student schedule grid report. I'll load that up. And now I see only semester 1 instead of both semesters 1 and 2. So an additional option, you can restrict the results based on various search fields and adding a condition. And then if you want to remove the condition, you can just click the delete button to remove the condition. Student schedule, course management. All right. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to taking attendance. Now there's a number of ways to take attendance. There's daily and period attendance. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate taking attendance by a multi-action. So there's the option you can do, you can select students, do multi-action attendance. And the reason you might do this is if you have multiple students who are taking a field trip, maybe you find all the students who are taking a particular class by using a filter, select them, and then multi-action attendance to record a field trip. And I'm going to record this from today through Friday, and I'm going to have the period, have it be absent. The time, I'm just going to leave that empty that'll be for the whole day. And then you have the option to overwrite existing daily attendance or not. So if they already have daily attendance on a given day, you can choose to overwrite it with this new attendance if they have, or you can instead choose to leave that attendance in place. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to do this for 5, 6, 7, and 8. Just to demonstrate what happens. So 5, 6, 7, and 8 daily attendance. So I'm going to save and go to daily attendance. Now by default, it's showing today. We actually want to see all the way through. We'll see all the way through the 8th search. Okay, so here we can see that David is absent 5, 6, and 7. So since the 8th was a weekend, it was not actually recorded. So the taking attendance determines not to take any attendance for that date based on the daily rotation that was specified earlier. And since the weekend was not an in-school day, no attendance was taken. And if we look at day 5, which is tomorrow, we can look at the period attendance that was taken. Here we can see that it was taken for morning meeting, AP Chem Lab, and French Lit. And we'll notice that Ancient Civilization, which did not meet on day 5, or would not meet on a Wednesday, which tomorrow is a Wednesday, day 5 is a Wednesday. There's no record for period attendance for that day for that class. All right. You also have the option to edit the class here. So for instance, we can, well, let me choose day 5. So this date is day 5. We entered it, modified it today at 10:30, edit it. So for day 5, we can choose to edit the attendance record here, specify the information, and check Save Period Attendance. And then we can choose to take attendance for individual periods as well, mark the attendance for the periods as well, and we can see which classes actually meet this day. All right, now let's suppose we took these attendance records and, well, actually before that, let's go back to students and do a PDF report. In this case, I'm going to run an attendance detail report just to see the records for my selected students. What's important here is you also need to make sure you choose the marking period you want to run it for. I'm just going to say all, request report, and we'll see if we have any other attendance besides this that I recorded. All right, nope. So from the beginning of the year through the end of the year that we have set up, he has these 3 absences that we just recorded today. Another thing you'll notice about the reports is we'll keep a list of the 5 most recent reports you've run and keep them available to download for a certain period of time so that you can see what you've run. You can re-download the PDF if you need to. And that's all down here on the request reports. Now back to attendance, let's take a look at period attendance as well. So from the last time we recorded daily attendance, it also automatically selected the period attendance. So we can see that these are all for David Yime between days 5, 6, and 7. We have the options to do different things with the attendance that was recorded. You can generate an email merge, maybe, or mail merge for the records. Same thing under daily attendance if you were to select those records. So if we do this again, you could email merge based on these records and send. Normally you wouldn't do 3 for the same record for the same student, but maybe just for tomorrow we notice that David Yime is absent. We want to email merge the parents and let the parents know David was absent. So what's going on? Please contact the school. So the difference is we have the daily attendance and then the individual period attendance. Now I'm going to go ahead, and since I don't want to keep these attendance records, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove them. We have a multi-action delete, and I'm going to choose to delete the period attendance records as well. And click delete. And now those records are removed. All right. Now I'm going to move over to Parent-Teacher Conferences. Parent-Teacher Conferences under Admin, Maintenance, Parent-Teacher Conferences. So here we can see we have a number of Parent-Teacher Conferences set up. Normally, parents will sign up for Parent-Teacher Conferences through the parent portal, and it'll automatically be updated in here. In this case, however, maybe the parent calls in and says, we want to schedule a conference with the teacher. So let's say I want to schedule a conference with the parent calls and says, I really, really need to talk to our teacher, D-A-S-E-C-E, D. So Joseph Dasis. So here are some available conferences. We can see that none of these 4 are signed up for. We tell them the times. I said, I'd like to schedule it for 11 a.m. Click the schedule. And then here we can see which students are available. In this case, it happens to be David Yime that we want to schedule for. And then if they have a split household, you would be able to pick which household. So in this case, we manually scheduled this conference for the Yime family on 6/14/2019. You also might get the reverse. The parents signed up for the conference, but then they have to cancel and they want to free up the slot. They call into the school. You locate the record you want to remove, and then you can come in here, select the record, and blank out the student, save, and now it's unscheduled. All right. Now let's see any other items. Guess one last thing to point out, we do have, along with those reports, we do have there are a number of other PDF reports, one of which would be Parent-Teacher Conferences. I did just unschedule this student, but for instance, there is a Parent-Teacher Conference by household report. There are a whole number of reports that you can have in the system that are available to be used. What you'll find is as you go through and use reports, there may be some reports as a school that you decide you don't want cluttering your list of report options. There's actually a way to manage which reports are visible under Security, Maintenance, Report Exclusions. These are all the reports that are available in the system that you can potentially run as a PDF report. Some of these might even be crystal reports, but what you can do is if they're checked, they're enabled and available to be run. If they're unchecked, it means you don't want to see them, you've removed them, and so they're not available to be run as a general process. Many schools find it advantageous, once they've established which report cards and transcripts they're going to use, to remove any of the report cards as options that they're not using, just to avoid confusion. Same thing with any transcripts that they're not using. So the number of transcripts, you can choose to exclude transcripts from being run, and various schedules, like which grid schedules you want to use. These would all be different options to either include or exclude. This is for all divisions as a whole. So if you have different report cards that you are using in different divisions, you'll need to keep them enabled. But otherwise, this is a feature to keep in mind just to help simplify your school's life. And I believe that concludes everything that I wanted to cover today. We covered the managing of relationships, setting up the daily rotation, course management, adding students to courses and how to remove them from courses, basically managing individual student schedules, how to take attendance, and how to edit the parent-teacher conferences. So again, if you have any questions, comments about this training, by all means, send us those questions or comments to support@pcreducator.com. We'll be happy to take a look and address them. And I thank you very much for your patience while I went through this training.